Heartwarming discovery. Billionaire CEO encounters four street girls who mirror his long-lost love. David Hartman stood atop his skyscraper in downtown Chicago, surveying the concrete jungle that reflected his empire, an empire built on ambition, resilience, and a relentless drive for power. At 45, he was a billionaire living the American dream, a man everyone envied. But as he stared out at the city, a void gnawed at him, a loneliness that cradled his soul. Memories of Emma, his high school sweetheart, felt like echoes in a hollow chamber. She was the light in his life. Her laughter, dreams of a better world, and unwavering kindness left an imprint he couldn't shake. The thought of her vanish too soon plagued him, especially as he prepared for the charity gala intended to bolster his public persona. With every fleeting moment, David's thoughts drifted back to Emma. She passionately wanted to help others, to make a difference. His heart grew heavier thinking about the disparity between her dreams and his current reality of corporate conquest. He longed for a sense of community, a missing piece he didn't know how to find. On the night of the gala, bustling down the city streets, he caught a glimpse of four street girls gathered around a spray-painted mural, laughing effortlessly as they shared stories. Jamie, tough and resilient, stood tall despite the weight of homelessness. Lily, a young artist with paint-stained hands, captured beauty in chaos, her eyes shimmering with hope. The other two girls had their own tales, rich, inspiring, and dripping with resilience. "Hey," David called out, feeling an inexplicable pull towards them. In that moment, as they turned, it was as if he had stumbled into a time warp. Their camaraderie reminded him of the bond he once had with Emma. His heart raced. Hope surged through him. They welcomed him with laughter that squelched the loneliness he'd been nursing. Before continuing, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Every encounter brought him closer to understanding their struggles. Tell me about your dreams, he urged over a makeshift dinner, feeling a warmth around the table that echoed a tender longing for connection he hadn't known he was still seeking. Laughter and shared stories filled the air, weaving a fabric of belonging. David felt the walls of his structured existence crumble ever so slightly. But a deeper conflict brewed within him. The further he ventured into their world, the more he risked losing the power and prestige he had built. Yet when the charity project proposal arose in his offices, a storm of criticism from his privileged colleagues erupted. Their dismissive attitudes towards the girls he had just met felt like a punch to the gut. This was a project born from love. From the bonds he had forged, it represented their dreams. A crack appeared in his corporate armor. Then came the moment that shook him to his core. Witnessing a violent altercation nearby illuminated the razor-thin divides of privilege he had so long ignored. Anger rose in him, grounding him in raw humanity. Everything he thought he understood about success now felt like a lie. With Emma's face etched in his mind, he stood there gripped by uncertainty, wondering which path his heart would lead him down, the one of consequence or the one of comfort, and more importantly, which legacy would ultimately define him. David stood on the street corner, the sounds of the city fading away as he grappled with the scene he had just witnessed. The clash of voices, the shouts, and the chaos had been shocking, a stark reminder of the struggles hidden beneath his polished life. He glanced back at the four girls who had unexpectedly filled an aching void in his heart. "David, are you okay?" Jamie's voice pulled him from his thoughts. Her concern pierced through the turmoil swirling in his mind. "Yeah, I just saw something that shook me," he admitted, forcing a smile to appear more composed than he felt. "Welcome to our world," Lily said lightly. There was a strength in her words, an understanding that David had yet to grasp fully. "It's a wild ride out here. Do you ever get used to it?" he asked, genuinely curious. "No," Jamie replied, her gaze piercing. "But you learn to deal with it. We have to stick together." As they spoke, David felt an inexplicable bond growing, stretching between them like an invisible thread. Each girl had their own struggles, but through their laughter and resilience, they offered him an outlook he had buried deep beneath years of corporate battles and personal loss. That night, after returning home, David sat at his kitchen table, staring blankly at the intricately designed plans for the charity project scattered before him. The initial excitement he had felt when envisioning the project now collided with fear. Was he ready to sacrifice his elevated status? Days passed, and the gala finally arrived, an event layered with glitz and glamour. David entered the room, yet a weight pressed against his shoulders that his tailored suit couldn't alleviate. The lights sparkled like stars above, but he felt detached, an outsider masquerading in this world of wealth. Then he spotted purple in a sea of designer gowns, a flash of color that made his heart jump. It was the girls. Jamie, Lily, and the others stood at the edge of the ballroom, clutching hands, their faces lit with excitement and hope. He had invited them, wanting them to see what could be achieved through charity and compassion. As he moved toward them, he sensed the slight for a buzzing scene around them fade. They were in their own universe, blissfully unaware of the whispers and disapproving looks aimed their way. David approached, his heart fluttering in rebellion against the polished facade of his corporate colleagues. "Hi, I'm so glad you made it," he exclaimed, his voice breaking through the chatter. Their smiles, bright and genuine, made his heart swell. "Thanks for thinking of us," Jamie beamed. "This is amazing." Lily's enthusiasm flickered with artistic vibrancy. "It feels like a dream, doesn't it? We can make something beautiful from this." As they chatted, external conversations crept in, jarring David from his moment of joy. Criticism floated around him, harsh whispers about the girls. Why did he bring them here? They don't belong was just one of many. An inner storm brewed within David. The choice was crystal clear now. Did he want to be part of a world that looked down on those desperately trying to find their footing? Or did he want to embrace the people who reminded him of the goodness he had once taken for granted? With a nod of determination, he turned back to the girls, ready to stand beside them. "What if we did this together?" he suggested, a spark igniting in his chest. "Let us show them what we can build." Their faces lit up with excitement, but it was a question that hung unspoken in the air. Would he choose a path of love and empathy over one of comfort and wealth? And as David looked around the brand new world he was stepping into, he felt the stirrings of change deep within. But was he ready to confront the walls he had built and embrace a future with the girls who reflected the light of his lost love? The atmosphere in the ballroom shifted. David felt it in the pit of his stomach, the electric charge of possibility mingled with a tinge of apprehension. He was stepping off a precipice, not quite sure where the fall would lead. "Let us do this," he said, his voice a quiet anchor in a sea of noise. The girls exchanged excited glances, their eyes sparkling with belief and the thrill of a shared dream. Across the room, he spotted familiar faces, powerful executives, each one more polished than the last. They chatted over crystal flutes of champagne, their laughter ringing false and superficial. David felt a growing sense of disconnection from them, their world glittering yet hollow. "Come on." Jamie's voice broke his reverie. "Let us check out that auction table." She tugged his sleeve, her enthusiasm infectious, so he followed along. As they made their way through the mingling crowd, David couldn't help but notice how the girls broke barriers. Their laughter floated above the murmurs of doubt. With every step they took, David felt them carving out their place, no longer just guests, but participants in this grand event. Lily paused in front of a striking photograph of a coastal town. "This is stunning," she breathed, the image reflecting a world that felt both distant and familiar. "Can you imagine if we could help a community like this?" David's mind raced. What if we could? What if we used this event to not only raise money but to bring awareness to where it's really needed? The girls nodded enthusiastically, and David felt a surge of hope. It was a moment of clarity, as if he had finally found a compass pointing him toward a meaningful path. "But how?" Lily pressed. "What can we actually do?" David's heart beat faster with the thrill of brainstorming. We could create a project that not only raises funds but also educates people about the struggles many face, like the ones you all endure daily. That would mean so much, Jamie exclaimed, her eyes glistening. Ambivalence crept in. However, would they be heard? Would the world of opulence even care about their voices? Just then, a familiar figure approached, a tall man in a pristine suit, his sardonic smile betraying years of indifference. "David," he drawled, eyes flicking dismissively toward the girls. "Are these your new friends?" David bristled. "Yes, they are," he shot back, standing firm. "And I invite you to get to know them." The awkwardness hung thick in the air, a moment of reckoning. Silence blanketed the room, eyes roving from David to the girls and back. Lily's hand found David's, squeezing tightly. "It's okay," she whispered, grounding him. Somehow, her grip felt like a fortification against the tide of judgment. The tall man raised an eyebrow, intrigued rather than offended. "Well, this should be interesting." With uncertainty knotting in his stomach, David challenged the world in front of him. "What if I told you we can bring a different perspective to this gala? One that questions who we really help and who's left behind." "I wouldn't hold my breath," he smirked. But David stood taller. "I'm not backing down. This isn't just charity. This is about connection, about community, about stories worth telling." The man disappeared back into the crowd, leaving David reeling but focused. The girls gazed up at him, their faces glowing with cautious optimism. "Are you really ready for this?" Jamie asked, a mixture of fear and excitement in her voice. "More than anything," David replied, feeling his heart swell. "Let us make them listen." As he clasped the girls' hands, he knew they were embarking on a turbulent journey. But with them at his side, he felt ready to defy expectations, to challenge a world that measured worth by wealth alone. And just as they prepared to take their stand, a loud crash echoed from across the ballroom, diverting every gaze. The atmosphere held its breath. What new challenge awaited them now? The sound of shattering glass cut through the chatter, pulling everyone's attention instantly. David's heart raced as he turned to see a silver trophy, once proudly displayed for bidding, lying in jagged pieces on the floor. Gasps rippled through the crowd, each person parsing the event's gravity, some with amusement, others with concern. "Did someone drop that?" Jamie whispered, eyes wide. "Looks like a statement," Lily added, glancing around uneasily, aware of the social stakes they were wading into. David felt a surge of determination. "Let us go see." They maneuvered through the crowd, where whispers began to swirl around the debacle. As they reached the broken trophy, a heavy-set man with a furrowed brow was towering over the shards. His face was twisted with frustration. This was supposed to be the crown jewel of the auction. He griped, turning on his heel to scan the faces around him, needing someone to blame. "Maybe it's time to rethink our treasures," David said, his voice steady but amplified by the quiet that followed. Heads snapped towards him, eyebrows raised. "Excuse me?" The man shot back, sarcasm dripping from his words. David could feel the weight of the moment settle heavily on him. He felt the girls at his side, their hopeful energy fueling his resolve. "We have to reflect on what genuinely holds value," he continued, ignoring the growing murmur of disapproval from the elite poised before him. "It isn't always what shines the brightest but what can touch lives." The man scoffed, rolling his eyes, but a few of the onlookers seemed to consider David's words. The energy shifted slightly, curiosity peaking among some and scoffing disdain in others. "Who do you think you are?" someone shouted from the back. "I'm just someone who wants to break the silence," David replied, feeling grounded by the presence of the girls next to him. Their belief in him anchored his nerves. People can't be helped unless we truly understand their struggles. This trophy, he gestured to the wreckage, is worthless if it distracts us from the real work to be done. Maybe it was the conviction in his voice or the sincerity behind his words, but a flicker of recognition glimmered across the faces in the crowd. "Connect the dots." Lily spoke up spontaneously, her voice resonating through the throng. "Make us see what really matters." The murmurs shifted again, buzzing with intrigue, and for a moment, David thought he saw the tall man from earlier watching with renewed interest. But then, loud laughter cut through the air, breaking the moment. "That's rich." A woman, impeccably dressed in satin, chimed in. "These girls probably don't even know what charity really means." David felt the heat of humiliation rush to his cheeks, but he couldn't back down. "They understand more than you think," he shot back. "Just because something doesn't come wrapped in a bow doesn't mean it lacks value." He felt the support of the girls around him, their spirits interwoven with his. Jamie squeezed his arm while Lily fixed her gaze on the woman, her expression a mix of defiance and grace. Silence fell momentarily, but the tension hung palpably in the air. Then, something shifted. Was it a nod from a nearby executive? A murmured agreement from the crowd? David couldn't quite tell, but he felt the tide turning, like clouds parting to reveal a glimmer of sunlight. "Let us address what we should really be raising money for," Jamie proposed, her voice steady now. David recognized it, a moment of unification amidst judgment. He took a deep breath, aware he had only just begun. The importance of their mission crystallized even more. They were just 4 girls from the streets, but they had something the opulence around them lacked. "What if we spoke for those whose voices aren't heard?" David said, his determination crystal clear. "If we could turn this gala into a launchpad for real impact, would you join us?" And just as a hesitant applause broke through, another loud noise erupted from the back of the room, signaling the arrival of security to handle the chaos that had been unleashed. The future hung in the balance. Would they transform this moment into their message, or would it be lost in the commotion? David looked back at his friends, daring to hope. This wasn't just about the gala anymore. It was an awakening. He could feel it in the air. And in the midst of uncertainty and clashing forces, a single thought echoed in his mind. Would they seize the moment, or watch it slip away? The air crackled with anticipation as David squared his shoulders, feeling the weight of 100 eyes turned his way. The murmurs shifted to a low hum, like the gradual stirring of a storm. He could sense the tension, but it strangely felt empowering. "Ladies and gentlemen," David began, letting his voice rise above the crowd. "This isn't just about a trophy. This is about the lives it represents or the lives it fails to touch. How many of us have sought validation in things that shine, only to neglect the hearts that beat in shadow?" He scanned the faces around him. Some looked puzzled, others intrigued. A few wore expressions of disdain. But he knew he had their attention, and he decided to forge ahead with fierce conviction. Charity isn't defined by glittering events or expensive donations. It's an act of love, a connection. And those connections are found in our most vulnerable communities, where the real treasures lie. Lily, her cheeks flushed with passion, shouted, "Let us raise our voices for those who can't." David caught her fire, feeling his resolve strengthen. A man from the back sneered, "Yeah, and how do you plan to do that? You can't just wave a magic wand." David stepped forward, meeting the man's eyes. "No, I can't. But I can start a conversation. I can invite people to open their hearts. Together, we can do something powerful." Jamie nodded in agreement, her enthusiasm infectious. "Imagine if every dollar here went to create real opportunities to help people start from where they are and rise. We could change the narrative." A few hesitant claps resonated from the edge of the crowd. David's heart raced. Could they really connect with these people? Then, from behind the man, an older gentleman, dressed in a tailored suit, raised his hand. "What's your vision?" he asked, his voice gruff but curious. David inhaled deeply. "I envision mentorship programs for youth in underserved areas. Training for people wanting to break into the workforce. Resources for families struggling to make ends meet. We don't need more trophies, we need healing, growth, and connection." With each word, David felt the energy shift. It was like watching a seed break through the ground, fighting for life. Faces softened, and a few people began to nod, considering the ripples of possibility. Suddenly, the security guards approached, scanning the room for trouble. "What's going on here?" One of them barked, but David sensed they weren't the real threat. Just a conversation about what matters most. David shouted, his voice rising above the murmurs. Do you realize this is a gala? The guard replied, crossing his arms, clearly unimpressed. Yes, a gala with an opportunity to create change. David shot back. Look around, these people want to help. They just need a real reason to engage. The crowd buzzed with renewed energy, and David felt hope surge within him. As if answering an unspoken call, more people began to step forward, one at a time. Finally, the heavyset man, who had initially scorned them, slowly approached David. I may have spoken out of turn, he admitted, rubbing the back of his neck uncomfortably. Perhaps we've been too focused on the trophy. David's breath caught. It's about what we can give, not what we can gain, he said gently. Before he knew it, the room erupted in applause. Hands clapped with an unsettling force, blending excitement with hesitation. David looked at Jamie and Lily, who beamed with pride. They'd sparked something vital, something that had a chance to change lives. But just then, a thunderous voice cut through the applause. If you think this is going to change anything, you're living in a fantasy. Everyone turned, and David's stomach dropped. A formidable figure stood at the entrance, glaring at the crowd. It was Miles Montgomery, the billionaire CEO known for his ruthless business tactics, his presence alone commanding attention. Could he derail everything they'd worked for? Would he allow the moment to slip away? David felt a chill run down his spine. The stakes had just risen higher. This was the moment that would define them. Would they stand their ground, or retreat? The tension in the room thickened, like electric air before a storm. All eyes were on Miles Montgomery, who strode through the crowd with a confident arrogance that made David's heart race. He was used to power, not the humble calls for change being ignited by David and his friends. You think you can galvanize a room full of people with pretty words? Miles challenged, his voice booming, cut through the applause like a hot knife through butter. I built my empire from the ground up. Let me tell you, change isn't about hope. It's about money and influence. David felt the crowd waver, uncertainty creeping back into their faces. But he wouldn't let fear take root again. Instead, he took a step closer, matching Miles's intensity. And those things alone won't heal our communities, Miles. We can't afford to overlook the human element. A murmur spread through the crowd. David noticed that a few people seemed to lean toward him, their curiosity piqued. Look around, Miles continued, his gaze sweeping the room. This is a night to celebrate accomplishment. These people want to rub shoulders with success, not sit around talking about problems. Success isn't just about money. David shot back, his heartbeat pounding in his ears. It's about generosity, compassion, and connecting with those in need. Why can't you see that? In that moment, a young girl, perhaps no older than 10, emerged from the crowd. Her clothes were worn, and she clutched a faded teddy bear to her chest. Everyone stepped aside, startled by her sudden appearance. With wide eyes, she looked up at Miles, unfiltered innocence radiating from her small frame. Mr. Montgomery, she said, her voice barely louder than a whisper. You're a hero to a lot of us. But, if you have so much, why can't you help us? The question hung in the air, a piercing arrow aimed straight at Miles's heart. David watched as the billionaire's steel facade faltered for just a moment. Miles glanced back at the girl, a mixture of incredulity and discomfort flashing across his face. I've helped plenty of people, he stammered. But not us, she replied, her tiny fingers tightening around her teddy bear. The crowd collectively gasped, sensing the shift. David felt it too, a connective thread weaving through hearts and minds, allowing a flicker of vulnerability to break through what had been rigid walls. It was a glimmer, a chance for Miles to reconsider everything he thought he knew. Just then, Jamie stepped forward, emboldened. We can bridge the gap. We can offer those connections that mean something. But only if someone like you would be willing to help pave the way for others. She gestured toward the girl, her gaze unwavering. Miles's jaw clenched, his usual bravado wavering. The applause faded, leaving silence, a heavy pause filled with possibility. Did he feel the weight of what he might be losing or gaining in that moment? Another man from the back shouted, "If we work together, think of how many lives we could change. It doesn't always have to be about profits." The crowd began to respond, voices rising, ignited by enthusiasm and a sense of empowerment. David could see it, the energy shifting yet again, as Miles stood at the crossroads of a decision that could alter his path forever. Would Miles step back into the shadows of his fortress or break free and embrace the love that David so passionately spoke about? In that electric moment, the stakes had never been higher. David's heart surged with hope and trepidation. Would they witness the birth of something profoundly transformative? Or would they lose this vital chance to redefine what success truly meant? The air buzzed with anticipation, leaving the question hanging: would the billionaire step forward to join them? Miles's throat tightened as he stood there, caught off guard by the girl's boldness. The room faded into a blurred backdrop, the murmurs of encouragement from the crowd dimming to a whispering echo. All he could see was that little girl, her teddy bear, and the question that had pierced straight through his well-crafted image. "Why can't you help us?" It hung in the air, a challenge demanding an answer he couldn't brush off with mere corporate jargon. For the first time in a long time, Miles felt something shift inside him. The walls he had built seemed to quiver slightly, like the first raindrops of a storm starting to fall. He began, his voice faltering. The words clambered up his throat, trapped by years of self-preservation. He could feel the heat of scrutiny from the crowd. Their eyes were fixed on him, a mix of hope and skepticism. David took a breath, sensing an opportunity. "Miles, this is your chance. You can make an impact. Imagine showing the world that success doesn't have to come at the cost of kindness." The billionaire measured David's sincerity and the passion in the voices around him. He could continue to maintain his image, shut down the moment, and focus on the so-called success that had brought him to this point. Or he could step out of his comfort zone and redefine success in a way that mattered to all those present, especially the girl standing before him, grasping her teddy bear like it was a lifeline. For once, the words felt inadequate. But there was something stirring deep within, a faint memory of who he used to be before the wealth and power clouded his vision. At that moment, he caught sight of the girl's hopeful expression. The flickering lights overhead cast shadows across her face, illuminating the trust and expectation shining in her big eyes. It was like gazing into a mirror that reflected a part of himself, a part long buried under layers of ambition and greed. "I can do more," he finally said, and the room fell silent. "I can help." The gasp that rippled through the crowd was deafening. David's heart raced as people began whispering to each other, the mood shifting from disbelief to an emergent wave of excitement. "But how?" Miles continued, the question spilling out as he began to visualize beyond his own empire. "What do you want me to do?" "Start small," Jamie interjected, approaching Miles with a newfound fervor. "Help us with resources. Partner with those of us on the ground. Show others that change is possible. And reach out." David stepped in, a gentle urgency weaving through his words. "You know people, Miles. Use those connections. Help empower youth. Help families. Help the people you've overlooked." His eyes captured the crowd again, finding faces filled with curiosity and hope. Their energy was palpable, a collective beating heart, ready to burst forth with the promise of something new. Miles felt himself nodding slowly, the idea settling in his chest like a warm ember. The weight of a decision pressed down on him, yet it also felt exhilarating. A redemption of sorts. From the corner of his vision, the girl smiled wide, shifting her grip on the teddy bear as if she were the one holding all the hope in her small hands. As he took a step toward her, the room held its breath, waiting. Miles could feel the path beginning to curve beneath his feet, leading him toward something he'd never truly acknowledged before: real impact. But as he searched the crowd for the words to commit, a shout erupted from the back. "What about the past, Miles? Can you really change?" The tension returned, a stark reminder of doubt that lingered on the edges of possibility. The room went still, every gaze fixed on Miles once more. A question hanging heavy: could he truly step forward? And in that fleeting heartbeat of uncertainty, Miles's mind raced. Would he shatter the mold of his past or remain a prisoner of his own making? Miles's heartbeat thudded in his chest, every pulse a reminder of the choices that lay ahead. He looked around the room, taking in the faces that were now charged with anticipation. It was a kaleidoscope of emotions: hope, skepticism, curiosity. Each gaze bore into him, hungry for a sign, a commitment, a reason to believe. As he wrestled with the weight of the shout, his eyes settled on the girl. She was still there, teddy bear held close. Her innocence seemed to speak on behalf of everyone present. In that split second, a suffocating fear washed over him. What if he said the wrong thing? What if this was just another moment where he let everyone down? But he had just made a promise to himself. Miles swallowed hard, stepping into the spotlight that suddenly felt brighter and more scrutinizing. "Change isn't easy," he began, his voice steadying with each word. "I've been lost in my own world for too long. But if I've learned anything today, it's that I can't stay in that bubble anymore. We all deserve better." He glanced at David, whose nod of encouragement ignited something deep within him. He needed to turn this moment into action. "I can start by listening," Miles said, his voice rising, fueled by urgency. "Listening to those who know what it's like, who have lived these struggles." "What will that even do?" someone shouted from the back, skepticism riding his voice. "What if you just walk away once you've made your speech?" Miles felt his shoulders tense. That criticism was a reminder of his past decisions, a sting that sparked his resolve. "If you give me this chance," he replied, his tone firm, "I promise I won't. You can't walk away. Not this time." The crowd held its breath, each person hanging on his words. Miles took a deep breath, imagining the right path forward, the connections he could forge, the resources he could gather. He envisioned schools filled with laughter, a community empowered and inspired. "Let us start here," he continued, the excitement bubbling in his chest. "I'll host a town hall. Bring everyone together. We'll create a platform to challenge the status quo and listen to your voices. We'll build something from the ground up together." Murmurs of approval rippled through the audience. Hope sparked in the corners of the room. The little girl beamed, clutching her teddy bear tighter, as if her entire joy rested on him. Miles smiled back at her, feeling a warmth spread through him. Perhaps it was too soon to call it redemption, but embracing this moment felt like the first step toward something genuine. He could sense the walls within him starting to weaken. Suddenly, something tugged at the edge of his consciousness, a familiar sound. The laughter of children, joyful and carefree, reached his ears. He turned toward the source, surprised to see a group of girls hanging at the far end of the room, their eyes wide with curiosity. Something in their smiles jolted him. They looked just like his own lost love from years ago, sweet, genuine, and full of hope. He took a step closer, drawn to them. "Hey, you guys," he said, his voice softening. "What do you think we should do?" Their cheeks flushed with surprise, but one girl, brimming with confidence, spoke up. "You need to make it real. Don't just talk. Show us." Miles nodded, his heart pounding with a different kind of excitement, now an urge to connect, to really listen. He realized this could mean so much more than just a project. It could be a journey. As he smiled at them, the tension began to feel lighter, like a weight had lifted off his shoulders. But an unfamiliar thought tugged at him, whispering doubts of whether he would truly succeed or merely repeat the mistakes of his past. "Will they trust me?" he wondered silently, an uncertainty brewing in his mind. The doorway to change was wide open, but could he step through, forever altered? The journey was just starting, the clock ticking away, and as he stood there, ready to reach out, he felt a storm of doubt brewing within him once more. Would the ghosts of his past come haunting back just when he was on the brink of something new? Miles's heart raced as he walked toward the girls, the warmth of their shared laughter filling the room and pushing away the shadows of doubt. It was as if their lightheartedness created a fragile bubble, one he wished he could step into and embrace fully. The girl who spoke up, her voice confident, reminded him of everything he had lost. He could almost feel the ghost of her smile, the way it lit up her face in joyous moments. "Make it real," she had said. The words echoed in his mind, anchoring him. He knelt down, bringing himself eye to eye with her. "You're right. I need to do more than just talk." His voice trembled slightly. "What does making it real look like to you?" The girl exchanged glances with her friends before her eyes sparkled with ideas. "We want to make a place where we can all play, learn, be together, like a park or a safe space." Yeah. Another girl chimed in, enthusiasm radiating from her. "And there should be adults who care enough to help us." "You can be that adult." Their words washed over him like rain after a drought, refreshing and revitalizing. He had been so focused on fixing big problems, he almost forgot the immense power of a simple idea. Connecting children with their community could lead to true change, touching lives in ways he had not considered. "All right," he said, standing back up, excitement coursing through him. "Let us make this happen. What can we do together to turn this vision into reality?" A swirl of chatter erupted, the room bursting with energy. Ideas flew around as the girls enthusiastically suggested activities and goals they dreamed of seeing. He felt himself swept up in the tide of their imagination, leaning into the raw creativity already simmering in the room. But doubt was still lurking, coiling in the back of his mind. Miles thought of budget constraints, city regulations, and the weariness of his commitment. Every glimmer of hope came with potential pitfalls, and each girl's bright face reminded him of both possibility and the stakes. "Hey, listen," a voice interrupted his thoughts. It was David, who had moved closer, his brow furrowed. "You know, there's a lot to figure out here. Are you really ready for the work involved?" Miles looked into David's questioning gaze, and a moment of silent understanding passed between them. The weight of realization sank in. This was more than just a speech. This was about dismantling old habits, facing fears, and embracing the unknown. "Yes," Miles replied firmly, surprising himself with his own certainty. "I've been scared for too long. If I let that fear run my life, I'll never grow beyond my mistakes. I want to help this community thrive. I want to stand by these kids. They deserve it." As he spoke, he saw the little girl's eyes widen, her teddy bear forgotten for a moment. She started to beam again, as if his words had ignited an ember within her that smoldered hope. "Then let us do it," one of the girls cried out, jumping up and down as laughter filled the air once more. Just then, an unexpected noise broke the joy. A loud crash came from the back of the room, making them all jump. A panel from the wall collapsed, sending dust and debris flying. The mood shifted dramatically as gasps echoed, and everyone turned to look. "What just happened?" Miles asked, his heart dropping. "Is everyone okay?" He approached cautiously, concern replacing the excitement that had just filled the room. Something deeper than the physical destruction seemed to crack in that moment, a shiver of uncertainty running through him. What did this mean? Was the momentum they were building now at risk? He felt the specter of doubt swirl around him again, this time with a fierceness that was almost palpable. As everyone worked to assess the situation, Miles couldn't shake the feeling that this moment represented something far more than just a mishap. Was it an omen? A sign that this path he was choosing could crumble just like that wall? With questions clouding his thoughts, he realized he needed to decide whether to stand back or forge ahead. Would this challenge become another barrier, or could it be the catalyst he needed to prove they could overcome anything together? The air was thick with uncertainty as he looked around, the faces now colored with worry. The journey was just beginning, but could it withstand the first test? With the dust still hanging in the air, Miles felt the concrete tremor of uncertainty, but something stirred deep inside him. Standing at the precipice of fear and hope, he quickly turned back to the girls, these resilient warriors who had inspired in him both trepidation and courage. It was time to show them that real change wasn't just about words or ideals. It was about taking action, no matter how daunting the challenge. "Listen up," he said, raising his voice above the tumbling confusion. "This wall doesn't define us. It's just a reminder of how fragile our plans can be, but it can't stop us from our vision. We will rebuild this together." A hush fell over the crowd. Then Jamie spoke up, her unwavering spirit brightening the mood. "We just need some tape and a lot of determination. It's what we do with the pieces that counts. Laughter broke out, lightening the weight that had settled in the room, carrying the sound of hope like butterflies on the breeze. Miles watched the girls rally their spirits, joining hands, lifting each other up as if the shattered wall had already transformed into a pathway. David stepped forward, emboldening the tide of change. Let us take this moment of chaos and spin it into something meaningful. This is our chance to show everyone what community really looks like. The crowd seemed electrified, gathering energy as they began brainstorming ideas. We can create a mural to replace that wall, Lily suggested, her artistess spirit quickening with excitement. Something that reflects our dreams and struggles. A symbol of unity. Let us combine art with a fundraiser, exclaimed one of the little girls, her own bright smile reminiscent of childhood innocence. We can invite others to help us paint. It'll be a big event. Miles felt a rush of adrenaline flowing through him. He could see it, the revival of hope amid despair. Suddenly, the challenge ignited the very spirit of what they were all aiming to achieve. That's exactly right, he declared. Not just any mural. A community masterpiece. We'll gather stories, dreams, paint them in bright colors. Let us show everyone who we really are and what we stand for. The energy in the room shifted again, transforming apprehension into excitement, like the first warm sun shining through the clouds after a storm. The girls began huddling together, voices overlapping, each of them tossing ideas back and forth. Each plan drew from the essence of their struggles, intertwining with renewed fortitude. Let us make it a celebration, one girl suggested, her eyes shining. A festival. We can invite everyone, the community, businesses, artists. That'll be an expression of love. Cheers erupted, filling the space with an exuberant sense of possibility. The rhythmic laughter echoed through the now open but cracked ballroom, each heart starting to piece together a vision greater than any bureaucracy, any wall that once stood before them as they planned. Miles stepped back, marveling at what was unfolding before him. He could feel the weight of his past releasing its grip as he drew inspiration from these vibrant girls who embodied resilience and courage. They were ushering in the change he yearned for, illuminating the path forward, painting over the grayness of fear with vibrant hues of hope. Okay, everyone, Miles called out. Let us set a date. A date for the mural festival. We'll spread the word far and wide. No one will want to miss this. Fueled by collective energy, hands shot up in willing agreement. The little girl with the teddy bear smiled wide, eyes sparkling brilliantly. Miles swore he caught a glimpse of the ghost of his lost love in her joy, reminding him of where it had all begun, a heart that wanted to make a difference. Days passed in a swirl of activity, excitement growing as the date approached. The community came together, transforming the once somber space into an explosion of color and creativity. Friends, families, and local businesses joined hands, the hands of street girls forming a bond of unity and love through every brush stroke. On the festival day, the sky was a brilliant blue, perfectly echoing the vibrant colors surrounding them. People gathered to share laughter, stories, and dreams, each heartbeat synchronizing as they painted together. As the mural began to take shape, an intricate tapestry of life on the streets, of dreams, challenges, and connections, it was impossible to ignore the shift in the atmosphere. It felt electric, like the whole community had come alive, every stroke representing a brush with adversity and triumph. Standing beside Jamie, Lily, and the other girls, Miles looked at the mural unveiling before them, immersed in the energy of hope. He caught David's eye, who smiled back, clearly seeing the transformation they had all sparked. "Thank you for believing in this," Miles said softly, his voice thick with gratitude. David shook his head. "No, thank you for stepping into the light with us. This is just the beginning." As the day went on, he turned to the little girl, now fully encapsulating the heart of their mission, and wondered if she understood just how profoundly this event had changed everything. She grinned ear to ear, not a hint of doubt on her face. In that moment, as life surged around them, Miles felt a surge of purpose, filled with emotion. It was clear that they had not only built a mural but a legacy, a testament to the power of connection, community, and compassion. And as the sun dipped to kiss the horizon, painting sky and earth with hues reminiscent of the mural, he realized this was more than just a day. They had created a ripple in time, a moment of realization that echoed a heartbeat intertwined with love, empathy, and commitment, forever changing not just their lives, but the very fabric of their community. The battle had not just been about walls or trophies but building something lasting. Together they had built hope. Together they had found family. And now, as they reveled in their shared success, he knew that this was just the beginning of an incredible journey that lay ahead, a journey bound by the strength of love, anchored in the richness of connection. As he took a deep breath, Miles surveyed the new world around him, and for the first time in a long while, he felt completely whole. Dare to become part of this journey. Don't just admire, subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next incredible story. Hit that like button right now to fuel this movement with your support. Drop a comment below sharing how this transformation affected you, and share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see the power of love and community. You need to be a part of this. Don't wait not even one more second. Your support can change lives.